I'm Patrick Leach, and I'm back in Gloucestershire, my home county. Now, Gloucestershire is actually bigger than I've realised, because I spent my childhood in a very small section of the county, the northwest area, but the north, east and southeast, that's the bit, most of the county, that I've never explored. And I've been to this region probably about 3-4 times in my lifetime. This is the Cotswolds, and I'm in Bourton-on-the-Water. The Cotswolds lies across the boundaries of several English counties, mainly Gloucestershire and Oxfordshire, but also parts of Wiltshire, Somerset, Worcestershire and Warwickshire. The largely rural landscape contains stone-built villages, historical towns and stately homes and gardens. My tour of the Cotswolds today would involve visiting 5 different towns and villages, starting here in Bourton-on-the-Water. Bourton-on-the-Water is known for its picturesque high street, bordered by long wide greens and the river Windrush that runs through them. The river is crossed by several low arched stone bridges. These arched bridges have led to Bourton-on-the-Water being called the Venice of the Cotswolds. My brother got married at the weekend, and I went to his wedding do a few nights ago, and it was fantastic, a really good night. It was lovely to see my brother, lovely to see his new wife, and absolutely wonderful to see other members of the family that I hardly ever see nowadays. And in more recent years particularly, sadly, I only ever tend to see them at family funerals. So it was lovely to see them all in a relaxed and social environment. Bourton-on-the-Water often has more visitors than residents during peak times of the tourist season. The houses and shops in the village are constructed of the yellow limestone characteristic of the Cotswolds, and they have the embellishments that make Cotswold architecture so picturesque. Projecting gables, string courses, windows with stone mullions and drip moulds, and stone hood moulds over the doors. Now, I should explain a little bit about the background here. My mum and dad were only together for about 3 years, and then I went to live with mum after they'd separated. So mum brought me up as a single child, but my dad got remarried and had 2 more sons from a second marriage. So those were my 2 younger brothers, but I never grew up with them. And I'm only getting to know them in more recent years, which has been nice. Although we never grew up together, when we saw each other at family funerals, we did actually say, let's keep in touch, and the one in particular who got married at the weekend, we've started to get to know each other a lot better, and hopefully we're now going to make up for lost time, which I'm really chuffed about. I came to Lower Slaughter, a village built on both banks of the River Eye, which also flows through Upper Slaughter. Records exist showing that Lower Slaughter has been inhabited for over 1,000 years. At the west end of the village there is a 19th century water mill with an undershot water wheel and a chimney for additional steam power. There is a ford where the river widens in the village, and several small stone footbridges join the two sides of the community. While the mill is built of red brick, most of the 16th and century homes in the village use Cotswold sandstone and are decorated with mullioned windows, often with other additions, such as projecting gables. Well, today's weather is proving really unpredictable. Lots of heavy showers and sunny spells, but I've just got to make the most of it. Whatever, I'm not going to let the weather stop me having a nice tour in the Cotswolds today. And I have never been to the Slaughters before, and Lower Slaughter is delightful. It's a lovely little village. I'm so glad that I took time out to stop and have a look. Going back to my brother's wedding do, I knew there would be a chance that my dad would be there too, and he was. That was fine. I hoped he would be. You see, I think a lot of the anger inside me is because of Dad, because he neglected me for most of his life, most of my life. My mum and Dad were together for 3 years. Then my dad, after they'd separated, met his second wife, and they've been together ever since. Great, brilliant. 45 years that'll be, and in nearly all that time my dad has not bothered with me. And I don't understand why. I still have never really understood why he's not bothered with me. The last time I heard from Dad, for my birthday, was my 7th birthday. Now the reason I can remember so well is because I received a birthday card saying, "Happy birthday, now you are 6." Because I can remember scratching the 6 out and writing over with felt pen a 7. Flipping out, my own dad can't remember his son's birthday. I asked my mum regularly if she would ring Dad to ask him if he'd come and see me, because I wanted to see him. But he never did. There was always a reason he had for not coming to see me, and I never knew what those reasons were. However, eventually, after many phone calls to my dad, he did come and see me, just the once, from what I can remember. I would have been 13. He came to pick me up, had his wife with him, and my 2 younger brothers. So my 2 younger brothers would have been 9 and 5, I suppose. 9 and 5, 9 and 6, something like that. Not very old, anyway. We went into town shopping, but it was the journey back that I remember so well. One of my brothers asked me, he said, "So what does your dad do for a living?" I was gobsmacked. I said, "Well, my dad's driving the car." So he looked at Dad and he said, "Dad, are you Patrick's dad?" And Dad went, "Yes." So I couldn't believe it. They hadn't told my younger brothers who I was. It was just absolutely astounding. Absolutely astounding. Upper Slaughter was identified by author Arthur Mee as one of 32 thankful villages. This term referred to the small number of villages in England and Wales which had lost no men in World War One. In one of Mee's books he wrote that a thankful village was one which has lost no men in the Great War, because all those who left to serve came home again. Although the village was subject to an air raid, it lost no men in World War II, an honour held by only 14 villages, collectively known as the Doubly Thankful Villages. Well, Upper Slaughter is lovely too. Quieter than Lower Slaughter, but it's equally as gorgeous in its own way. Well, I think I was about 14, and that was the time I started to go and see my dad on the bus. Because I thought, well, now that I'm a bit older, I used to travel a lot and go walking when I was that age, and I thought, yeah, I can go and see my dad at the same time, so I did. And the first time he seemed pleased to see me. It was like, oh, hello my boy, and all this. So it became quite regular, and then I got to know my two younger brothers by going to visit them, really. And I think I must have done that for probably 3 years on and off, because I think I was about 17 when I stopped doing that. So yeah, I sort of slowly got to know my younger brothers too, and I'm sure by that time they actually realised who I was. So but yeah, it's something I never really got over that, but yeah, I think when I was about 17, that was the time when Mum had invited my dad to go to my 18th birthday, because I wanted my dad at my 18th. However, what happened was, I got no response from the invitation that was sent to my dad, so Mum had to actually ring to ask if he was coming. And he was told he wasn't coming. And again, I don't know the reasons why that was, but he wouldn't be able to make it. So I was really upset that even for my 18th my dad couldn't make it. Just... If I recall correctly, it would have been after my dad hadn't bothered with me on my 18th birthday. I thought, stuff it. Clearly he doesn't care about me, so why should I with him? And I don't think that was unreasonable of me. So I stopped going to see him on the bus. I didn't bother going to visit him anymore. The only time I did see him, I reckon after that, was if I bumped into him by accident somewhere. And I reckon it would have been 7-8 years till I saw him again. And actually I remember I was in Gloucestershire. Not in this part of Gloucestershire, I wasn't in the Cotswolds, I was in another part of Gloucestershire. And I was wandering around, bumped into him in town, and I saw him with his wife and my two younger brothers, and he seemed pleased to see me. I suppose it was quite a number of years since he'd last seen me. And actually, before we parted, he said, well, next time you're at your nan's, and that's his mother, he said to me, give us a ring and I'll come and pick you up. And I thought, great. And my hopes were building up again, because I thought he really wants to see me again. So I arranged with Nan. I said, can I come and stay with you over a weekend? And she said, that's fine. And I said, well, my dad's going to come down, he said, when I come over to see you. So I rang my dad and I told him that I was going to stay with Nan on whatever date it was. And he said, fine. So when the weekend arrived, I went over to Nan's, and very casually she just said, oh, by the way, your dad's not coming. He's got the flu. His wife rang to say he's got the flu and can't make it. Great. So I'd gone over there for nothing. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was lovely to see Nan. But the whole reason for making this particular trip was because I knew my dad was going to come and see me. Why didn't he tell me before I went over to stay with her? Why didn't Nan tell me before I went over to stay with her? Just up the road from the Slaughters is the small market town of Stow-on-the-Wold, which is situated on top of an 800-foot hill at the junction of a number of major roads through the Cotswolds, including the Foss Way, the A429. The town was built as a marketplace in this location to take advantage of passing trade. Annual charter fairs were originally set up in the 14th century to establish Stow as a place to trade. These fairs were located in the square, which is still the town centre. As the fairs grew in fame and importance, the town grew more prosperous. Traders who once only dealt in livestock now dealt in many handmade goods, and the wool trade always stayed a large part of the trade. Reportedly, 20,000 sheep changed hands at one 19th century fair. Many alleyways run between the buildings of Stow into the market square. These were once used in the herding of sheep into the square to be sold. As the wool trade declined, people began to trade in horses, and these would be sold at every fair. The practice still continues today, although the fair has been relocated from the square and is currently held in a nearby field every May and October. It is still a very popular fair, with the roads around Stow being blocked for many hours on the day. Well, I think I've only ever been to Chipping Campden once before, but it's a really nice village to end my visit to the Cotswolds today. Chipping Campden was to be my final stop for today. This market town is famous for its elegant terraced high street, which dates from the 14th to the 17th century. A rich wool trading centre in the Middle Ages, Chipping Campden enjoyed the support of wealthy wool merchants. Today, it is a popular Cotswold tourist destination with old inns, hotels, specialist shops and restaurants. The high street is lined with honey-coloured limestone buildings, built from Cotswold stone, and boasts a wealth of fine architecture. Before leaving Chipping Campden and the Cotswolds, I had one final thought about my dad. I think the next time I would have seen my father would have been as I was approaching my 29th birthday. And that's a whole new chapter. There's a lot more to tell there, so I think I'll save that for the next walk.